Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 899. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today is January 31st, 2025.
All right, welcome to another episode of Anglican Unscripted. I think last week was a wonderful show. We got to talk about politics and religion, and I got a lot of feedback. Before we get to that, George, if you look outside the window behind me, that's the campground here in Solomons, Maryland, and it's still gloomy. This isn't Florida. There's no sunshine 24/7. If you really think about it, I don't think the sun really ever sets in Florida. You just can imagine it coming up the next day. So I'm here. It's 35 degrees and a bit chilly. And to do the show properly, I have to turn the heater off so that you guys don't hear the heater in the background. Other than that, George, how's the weather down in Florida?
Beautiful. We're having a Blessing of the Pets Festival tomorrow, St. Anthony the Great Festival.
Oh, wait, he's not the first blesser of animals.
Well, we started in this area the St. Francis Festival, which is in beginning of October, to bless animals. And then everybody copied us because it was such a hit. And then COVID came and we stopped. And then people started up again. And we thought, well, we're going to do it differently because October's still very hot.
Hot, yes.
So the other pet saint is St. Anthony of Egypt. Mm-hmm. And he's at the end of January, and we do it on a Saturday, so we've moved it to tomorrow. So we're going to have all the sort of, bric-a-brac, high carbohydrate, high caffeine foods, little fun rides, two blessings of the animals, one at 10 and one at 2, booths, the whole bric-a-brac.
Cool.
Maybe get 400 or 500 people with their dogs and cats here.
You need to rent a Helter Skelter, a little carnival thing that you have for all the kids to ride on. I hear they do that.
No, we're not a cathedral, therefore we really don't want to put one inside. But we do have a bounce house, Kevin. We do have a bounce house.
Good, that's close enough. All right, so we did a great show last week, probably the most viewed show in the history of Anglican Unscripted, where we got to talk about Bishop Buddy and her call to Donald Trump to be merciful. And I had introduced that section by saying, in my mind's eye, I see a pagan millionaire calling another pagan millionaire to be merciful. And somebody called me out in the comments and said, I don't think Donald Trump is pagan. Nobody took question that Bishop Buddy was pagan or a millionaire. Nobody took question that Trump was a millionaire. They just questioned whether or not I should be calling him a pagan. And if he's not, I apologize. It's not the realm of the show here to judge anybody's faith or salvation. So I take that back. I am surprised that nobody questioned the same attributes given to Bishop Buddy. Whatever. That's just my observation. Yeah.
Well, we also remember, Kevin, we also did a little more research. And one of the things we found in some of the questions we had and on comments on the show, who picked her, and it turns out that she was selected in October by the dean of the cathedral organizing the event. Mm-hmm. And part of it was there was the assumption that Joe Biden was going to win.
It would have been Kamala. Joe was out by
Kamala. Joe Biden was still president.
You just polled a Joe Biden. Okay.
Yeah, I just polled. But there was the assumption that Kamala Harris was going to win. Uh-huh. Because in the Washington, D.C. bubble, there was that assumption.
Oh, absolutely.
If you looked at the talking heads on MSNBC, the election night, they were shocked that Kamala Harris was losing. So first off, she was chosen before the election. Mm-hmm. And second, she was given an assignment. According to all the materials on the cathedral website back in October, November, this was the occasion to foster unity and peace.
Oh.
So Why do I raise this? Well, her assignment was to preach a sermon that fostered unity and peace. So not only did she break the wall of preaching at a person, and instead of about Jesus, she did not do her assignment. She did something else. She decided to, if I'm invited to a wedding and to give the sermon at a wedding, I give a wedding sermon. I don't flip it to something else. So not only first off, this was a revenge sermon. This was a revenge sermon. The elites in D.C., including the cathedral, they all sort of go to the same cocktail parties. And
yes, they do. Yeah.
They all wanted to have a coronation celebration of good old Kamala. She lost, and this interloper is back, and this sermon was of revenge. That's how I view it.
I don't know. People say she was speaking truth to power, and I kind of agree that she was, because she was losing power, and that was the truth. You can't just, I mean, it's sad that you and I have to report on clergy doing political things. Yet one of our calls is to stand up and be different. And we'll transition to that story in a minute. But it surprises me, the backlash of, well, Kevin, she was just asking the president to be merciful. Yeah, but her idea of mercy includes cutting off the genitals of children. I don't think we're having the same conversation here when you're saying all she wants is mercy.
They've been and it's fascinating because the non-religious left has now embraced her. And in fact, the Episcopal News Service said, we expect a rush of people coming into the Episcopal Church in response to her sermon.
Get the buses.
Yeah, we heard that after Gene Robinson's election. Now, the backlash has basically been coming from the religious left, who are saying how wonderful it is. Clueless Episcopal bishops who just like being in the news. But then there's been a pushback, and then of course there are others, who, the people who voted for Trump who hated it on political grounds. Mm-hmm. But we've seen a number of stories. Some we've reprinted on Anglican Inc. One was on Ian Paul's blog Suffiso, where people are saying she was engaging in manipulation, and that she was manipulating people. The one story we have on Anglican Inc. was an adult survivor of abuse, child abuse. And the language that, as you were saying, the language she was using all the right buzzwords, but they were the buzzwords that abusers use to excuse their behavior. So the more psychological analyses or psychological responses on several articles was that she was being abusive by manipulating words to outside of their true meaning, which is your point, to promote an ideology that was anything but merciful. Mm-hmm. It was dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, we have survived the last 10 or 12 years of the redefinition of words. So much to the point that we are not allowed, well, we are now, up until 2 weeks ago, we were not allowed to identify what a woman really was. What is a woman? Well, let's step back and take a look at that. It used to be just a female human. It's so much more than that now, Kevin. And so we have a chance now with Trump and his administration to take words and their meanings back from what the left has misused them for. And they misused man, woman, gender, and mercy. And those are words we need to take back, because those are words that God created. God created man. God created woman. God created mercy. And we're taking it back, hopefully on his behalf. Well, enough about politics. There's nothing much else to... Oh, boy. George, if you've been not on Twitter recently or Facebook, you're probably not going to know this, but Calving Robinson got canned by his new employers, the APA, and I thought we would talk about that. Calving Robinson, a friend of the show, a person we've interviewed a couple times, and a person I support in many different ways, and a person I agree with on many different levels. He went to the Right for Life march here and gave not here, I'm not sure which state he was at when he gave his little talk, but he gave a wonderful talk about the Right for Life. At the end of it, he imitated the one and only Elon Musk, put his hand up. I won't do it here because apparently it's wrong to do so. And he was called a Nazi for it, as Elon was. And you and I should talk about this because there's 4 or 5 different stories here. The first story that just it blew my mind was reading the release from the APA where they said...
Not APA, because it's Anglican Catholic Church, not
ACA.
the Anglican
I'm sorry. My
ACC.
fault. I pulled a Joe Biden. Sorry. AC. And so the ACC. And so here we are. And they put out the statement, we heard about what this happened at 3 o'clock. We don't know Calvin's heart in this. Well, did you ask him? If you're his bishop, aren't you supposed to be his pastor? Aren't you supposed to be his priest and know his heart? And so we need to really step back and take a look at this. You contacted me 2 nights ago and said, Kevin, the story's breaking. This came from his bishops. Let's post it and go with the story. I said, sure, let's go. And I read it. I said, that's stupid. They're not doing it right. Anglican Unscripted exists because bishops don't do it right. So it's nothing new for us, George. Let's talk about it.
Well, Calvin, as you say, was preaching at the National Right to Life. I believe it was in Washington.
Was it? Okay, all right.
And he was being mischievous at the end. Now, around the time of the inauguration, Elon Musk gave a little speech, and at a certain point, he took his hand.
Don't do it here. Don't do it. Don't do it here.
Well, I'll do it off camera. I did it with my hand. And he gave... And he moved his hand from his heart up across to level to his shoulder. Well, the crazies, the nut jobs, the MSNBCs of the world interpreted this as a Nazi salute.
Sure.
Which is ludicrous because you have to listen to context and words. He did not say Sieg Heil or anything like that. It wasn't in any way conceivable a Roman salute, which is the Nazi salute.
It's a Roman, yes, it is, yeah.
And so, but that doesn't stop because one of the tropes that the hard left has is that Donald Trump is a Nazi. And the joke is, Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has said Elon Musk is not a Nazi. He's a philo-Semite. I think we in Israel can tell who a Nazi is and who isn't. And so this was a non-story that the excitable kooks have turned into a fake story. And, and you just go on social media and you see memes from Hillary Clinton to Taylor Swift to Michelle Obama, all holding their hand in the same way that...
apparently, every politician and celebrity at one point or another has extended their arm, I won't do it on camera, 45 degrees up, and there's pictures of it. There's no pictures anywhere in the world of me doing this, George, and probably not you as well. There's no pictures of me ever being in black mask. I hope you have the same. But... all we're doing here is we're looking for the devil, and your job as a Christian is not to look for the devil. It is to look for the Lord, to seek the Lord,
or as we say in the baptismal covenant, the Episcopal Church, to find Christ in all people.
Yes.
Well, the kooks and the nuts are violating their baptismal covenant. And essentially this was a non-story. This was for some people of a conspiratorial mindset or far left persuasion. This was a fun entertainment belief. They knew it wasn't true, but it was just fun to say so anyway. Mm-hmm. There's an equivalent one on the right, which is Michelle Obama is actually secretly a man. There are,
okay.
Okay. And you can go on the internet and see all these.
Michelle Obama is why we have trouble defining what a woman is, I guess.
Well, and then you'll get a few celebrities like the late Joan Rivers and Candace Owen, the commentator.
Yeah.
She'll make these stories that Michelle Obama is secretly a man.
Uh-huh.
Well, to be perfectly fair, I don't think anybody truly believes that, but it is entertaining for some people, and they sort of joke about it. It's a fun meme. So it's the conservative equivalent to Elon Musk being a Nazi. Okay, that being said, Calvin Robinson, who's a rector of a parish in Grand Rapids, Michigan, under the jurisdiction of the Anglican Catholic Church. This is Calvin's fourth denomination. He started out in the Church of England, was refused ordination because of his politics. And there was a whole back and forth with the Bishop of London, which we covered at the time, because Calvin had a TV show on the GB network. He then entered the Free Church of England and was made a deacon by the Free Church of England. He fell out with the leaders of the Free Church of England, which is not hard because we've talked about our friend
Brett Murphy,
who has been victimized by Bishop Fenwick in the Free Church of England. So Calvin was unlucky. Calvin then went to the Nordic Catholic Church, which is a continuing church in the Union of Scranton alongside the Polish National Catholic Church, and he received priestly ordination from them. He then received a call to work at the church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, under the jurisdiction of the Anglican Catholic Church, which is one of the churches that came out of the Congress of St. Louis in the late 70s, opposed the ordination of women. Very high church, very spiky, very Anglo-Catholic, perfect in churchmanship.
Incense and candles, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, but also very, very conservative, socially, politically. So Calvin Calvin came to the United States. Now the Nordic Catholic Church isn't in the U.S., so there wasn't a place for him to come. And also with the crackdown on free speech in Britain, probably was wise for Calvin to move out of the U.S. because look what they've done to Tony Robinson.
Tony Robinson, yeah. He's in jail still.
And so Calvin makes his way to the United States, and Calvin hits it off great. Next thing we know, there are pictures of him at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump and at the inaugurations, and he's now at the Right to Life March, which is every January, and you'll see a bunch of ACNA bishops dressed in their parkas with little bits of purple sticking out here and there as they march down the street for pro-life rallies. This year we had Vice President Vance address the rally, and they were it was a joyous celebration because Donald Trump had just pardoned 21 or 23 pro-life activists who the Biden administration had gone out of their way to jail for
they were
over
prosecuted. Something that should have been $100. It should have been $100 fine, not 41 months in jail. Seriously.
Yeah, and coming after Black Lives Matter and Antifa can burn down federal courthouse and get a slap in the wrist. Well, okay, so President Trump is evening out the scales of justice. The pro-life movement is ecstatic because in one week, Donald Trump had been the most pro-life president, I guess, since Ronald Reagan. I don't know. I mean, he had just done tremendous things. They're euphoric. So it's a popular good mood. And Calvin, who's riding high, that his credit is pretty good in the United States. Now, he had been disinvited recently from a Reformed evangelical conference, which is probably a good thing given his Calvin's performance at the place in
Mere Anglicanism.
Mere Anglican Conference, okay. Where Calvin laid into the Reformation being a mistake, and not the place to do it. So Calvin is basically trying to find his footing. He's not going to be loved and adored by the Reformed conservatives, but for the spiky conservatives and for the Catholics and Catholic travelers, he's a rock star. And at the close of his speech, he mimics Elon Musk's pseudo, from my heart to you thing, which is called it, and he does it with a smile on his face. Okay. Now, this is how it ends. Now, meanwhile, Calvin has appeared on some podcasts recently with some very conservative figures. And one podcaster he was on really laid into the Judaism as being a pernicious, false religion, and Calvin doesn't interrupt but sort of nods his head, which is not Calvin saying he agrees, but, some people would like him to say, no, we can't be that mean to the Jews.
Well, hold on. I nod my head all the time because I'm listening. Okay, this is me listening. If I've not affirmed verbally, I have not affirmed it.
Okay, so what's happening is that the people who have it in for Calvin are starting to keep a list. He nods his head when somebody lays into Judaism. Mm-hmm. He's down at Mar-a-Lago. He's hanging out with his buddy Lawrence Fox, who is a conservative actor turned politician who says outrageous things. And so now and somebody complains to the ACC bishops that Calvin is giving a Nazi salute at the pro-life rally, and within 6-7 hours he loses his license. It starts off where somebody on Facebook says, I just talked to Archbishop Mark Haviland. They're going to sit on Calvin, wait for the announcement. So I wait for the announcement. And as soon as it came out, I sent it to you. And what was your impression of the announcement from the bishops of the ACC?
No due process is my thing. Okay, accountability and due process is what we so need within the confines of the church. And we're going to talk about this when we get to the Church of England in the next story. That people are watching the church right now. The world is celebrating the actions of the ACC. Rolling Stone ran the article, Calvin has been defrocked. The Guardian, I go through all of these liberals are just like, yeah, we told you he was a bad dude. We told you everything he said was evil. And all of a sudden, the ACC leadership, the bishops, have confirmed that for us. We appreciate their work in all of this. And I'm like, no, you don't do it that way. We do due process. First, you talk to the guy. What was in your heart? Well, this is could you just, Calvin, make a little public statement that you're not a Nazi because people are saying you're a Nazi? That's all you got to do. Sure, why not? Who's dumb enough to think I'm a Nazi? I guess I said, black.
How many Nazis? How many black Nazis with afros do you know?
I don't know. I just don't get it. So the bishops completely dropped the ball here, and I said, yes, George, run with it. We have so many stories of bishops doing wrong things on Anglican Inc. Why stop now? And so we have no due process afforded to a celebrity, for all intents and purposes, clergy who was brought over here because he was a firebrand, because the church wanted him to serve in that type of capacity. I've heard no complaints from the church about his travels and his political activism. I think they appreciate Calvin for who he is. Now, one of the problems is sometimes Calvin is who he is. And how do we as Christians find that role for him in our church, where it is going to be redeemable and glorifying to God? And there is some place for him. Now, I think right now people are passing around a hot potato because they don't understand Calvin. So I don't know.
Well, there's so many screw-ups here.
Yes.
First off, why exactly did he was never defrocked? He's still a priest. He just has lost his license from the Anglican Catholic Church. So it tells me he was never incarnated, meaning formally transferred from the Nordic Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Because if you were incarnated, my bishop just can't say, George, you're no longer a priest, out you go. It takes a whole rigmarole. Unless you're Catherine Jefferts Schori, then you have to pretend I abandoned the church.
It's like firing a government employee. It's very difficult.
Yeah, okay, it's difficult. Okay, so, but was it for politics or was it disobedience? Mm-hmm. Now, if it were politics, there's one priest of the Anglican Catholic Church who's on Facebook all the time who has the worst case of Trump derangement syndrome I've ever seen. This guy makes MSNBC looks rational and reasonable. And he has a brother who's rather prominent in intellectual circles. And yet nobody's ever sat on him or told him to shut up that I'm aware of. So it can't, so either you can do liberal politics without any penalty in the ACC and not conservative ones, but I don't think that's true. Or was it because he disobeyed a pastoral directive or order from his bishops? Well, that's not quite what they said. They basically told him to knock it off. But did they describe what knocking it off mean? And does knocking it off mean not making a joking gesture? And Kevin, your point exactly right. When they start off their letter was, we do not know what was in his heart. Well, did you ask him?
This is Christianity. This is Christianity. You have communication. You ask what's in somebody's heart.
But what this does is it makes the ACC bishops look like they're not ready for prime time. This is, the hit against the continuing church is that these are basically people with a fad, a hobby, where they like to dress up and play church.
Robes in incense, yes.
Yeah, this does nothing. This does nothing to dispel the disdain that a lot of people have for the continuing church as being a faux church, because there's no justice here for Calvin. And this says nothing about the faith of the members, of the faith of many of the clergy, but it says a tremendous deal about the College of Bishops just being amateurs and not knowing how to deal with someone like Calvin. I mean, you knew exactly what you were getting. Mm-hmm. And unless you had a contract that nobody's made us aware of, that at the head of the time said, Calvin, you're to spend 40 plus hours a week in your church. You're focused on pastoral care. You're not to be on the TV or not to hobnob with Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all these people. You are, and instead, well, this is, Calvin is being treated like Frank Pavone, a priest for life, who was defrocked in a corrupt political process by the Catholic Church. And I wonder if there's anybody who seems to attack the abortion lobby in religion, whether it's the Catholic Church, Frank Pavone, Calvin Robinson, and the Anglican Catholic Church, they seem to get electrocuted by touching that third rail.
Yeah.
You can be an Episcopal priest and say abortion is a sacrament, like that kooky woman who was dean at the seminary in Boston. But if you fight against it and really fight against it to end one of the most pernicious evils of our generation and time, Satan will seek to destroy you. And that's what's been happening with Calvin. Is Calvin free of error? No.
Gosh, no. Please. Calvin is just like you and I. He is fallen and he needs a savior. And
no, he's not not like you and I, because he's 39 years old. And
he's so young.
We resent that about him being 39 years old. No wrinkles,
no nothing. It's a babe in the woods. But look what the left and look what the wickedness has done with this story. It was on Drudge. It was on Rolling Stone. It's been plastered all over the media today that the church has kicked out Calvin, and they say they kicked him out because he's pro-life. And so there's the story that the ACA, his denomination has given us today. Should we move on, George? Now
we should also mention that this is the most read story we've had since Al Gore, since the Al Gore story
that was
on the Drudge. What,
yes.
10, 15 years ago?
Yeah. No, okay, going back in history, the most read story we had directly linked to Anglican Inc. was when Catherine Jefferts Schori accused Paul of harassing the demon-possessed women.
That's right, yes.
Okay, that went off the walls as far as direct hits to Anglican Inc. That put us on the map. And so I thank you, Catherine Jefferts Schori, for that.
So Calvin is now in that illustrious triumvirate of Al Gore, Catherine Jefferts Schori, and Calvin Robinson, who direct traffic to Anglican Inc.
I appreciate it, we appreciate it. It pays the bills and keeps the servers running. Like once, we hit all that traffic of, tens of thousands of visitors a minute, and it didn't even touch the servers. They're running for that.
Well, the two other little points I want to make is that, Calvin's here on a green card based on work. Is ICE going to pick him up?
Yeah, geez. No. Well, we got to clearly keep him in your prayers. He is right now a man without a church, and everywhere he goes, they find a reason to dismiss him. And here's my biggest problem. Calvin has been a deacon / priest for the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Has he ever had a Okay, go on.
A year and a half, 2 years.
Okay, whatever. So, has he ever had a good bishop? Has he ever had a bishop that served him in a way that a bishop-priest relationship should exist? No, not at all. He doesn't know what a good bishop is. That's sad, because there are good bishops in the church. And Calvin, keep looking, you'll find one. But
the other little point that I said is that, did Calvin do what Bishop Buddy did, which was use their clergy collar to make their points more? In other words, nobody would give a darn if Bishop Buddy weren't Bishop Buddy. Would people care if what Calvin Robinson said if he wasn't Father Calvin Robinson? And I think the answer is yes. I think Calvin wears a collar, but it doesn't make him this person he is. Bishop Buddy is a nonentity without her office.
Yeah.
Calvin is who he is and doesn't really need the clergy collar to be heard or listened to.
The hat helps. Those who are saying I like the hat. Okay. He wears the hat well.
A bowler hat does him good. So I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm basically trying to defend Calvin, saying is that though it's not my style, I wouldn't wear cassock and a cape. I wouldn't wear the cape ever, but the cassock to give a political speech. But that's just a style issue, and I don't think it impacts people's impression of his words, whereas it would with somebody like Bishop Buddy. So we can't jump on him for losing his clergy collar for political purposes, because he's bigger than that, I think.
And I hate to draw more criticisms, can't even talk today, towards Bishop Buddy, but what time are we in the church, George? Is this ordinary?
Epiphany. It's I wear green on Sundays.
Yeah. What was she wearing when she was? What color was that? I don't think she was in the proper color. I'm being hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, no, just don't get me started. But about clergy dress and apparel.
All right.
I like what I like.
All right. Okay. In case anybody has any confusion, George and I love Calvin Robinson. Okay. There is a place for Calvin in the church and in a church. It's up to a bishop to find that. That's your role. And so
the other thing is, and I don't know if it's premature for me to say this, he's not independently wealthy. He relies on his income.
Mm-hmm.
And until he finds a new spot, we may need to help him tide things over. I don't know how that'll work, but
I will put a link in the show notes to a way to help raise money for him. He probably has a PayPal account. I'll contact him and ask him. And maybe next week, when some of this kind of blows over, I'll have him on the show and do a little interview. That poor guy. Oh, well, so let's move on.
Well, actually, just take it further. He did not endear himself to some of the ACNA at Mere Anglicanism. When the Bishop of Gulf Atlantic basically says you're demonic. But there are parts of the ACNA that he would fit in perfectly with.
Absolutely, no question about it.
Diocese of All Souls, All Saints, non-geographic Anglo-Catholic diocese.
Yeah, All Saints.
The ideal with in
Fort Worth.
All Saints, Fort Worth. Now, Fort Worth may want him to move there and take a parish, but Calvin, I wish the ACNA. I'm just wishful thinking. Could find like a position for him as like a canon at a cathedral.
Yeah,
someplace where he could.
Yeah.
Someplace where he could park himself, do some church work, but not have the full-time pastoral responsibility. Because, to be frank, his skill set that I have seen is in his communications. He's one of the best apologists in communications of his generation.
Absolutely.
And the ACNA would be foolish to let that slip out of their hands. But to say, okay, you've got to be like George and, run the festival tomorrow, and you've got 15 pastoral visits you have to make before Sunday, that's not the best use of his time, because I don't think not saying he can't do it, but I don't think that's where his heart is.
No. Well, I mean, just like Gavin, he has that whimsicalness about him. And he speaks with that English accent, and he's proper British. That goes so far in American politicalism that I think that there has to be something for him here. And let's pray for that. Now, George, let's move overseas to the Church of England. And I hate these stories, but it is what it is. The Bishop of Liverpool has resigned after Channel 4 and our favorite lady who tried to take down Jordan Peterson had drawn an investigation into abuse complaints. There are 2 complaints against the bishop. And basically, he's into tongue action and nibbling ears, from what we can hear. But we need to talk about this. He has resigned, and this goes right to the top again. And now the buck stops with Cortell. So, George, give us a story here.
5 or 6 layers in this story, too. Okay. Yeah. Bishop of Liverpool, John Perumbaleth, he's of Indian origin, has quit after public pressure following media reports on Channel 4 News. There were 3 nights in a row where Kathy Newman had exclusive stories. And Kathy Newman is the lady who in the United States became famous in her interview with Jordan Peterson, where he basically
took her to pieces.
Broke her. Perumbaleth has faced accusations from 2 women in 2 different dioceses, in Diocese of Chelmsford, which is in Essex, east of London, and in Liverpool, that he had sexually harassed them. And one of the complainants was a woman bishop, according to Kathy Newman. And in Channel 4's investigation, they detailed some of the complaints, and Perumbaleth walked free. In one case, because the complainant was not filed within 12 months.
Well, so you're telling me allegations of sexual crimes, sexual nature, only have a 12-month reservoir in the Church of England?
Well, yes and no. Okay. If the complaint was brought under safeguarding, which is, the child abuse thing, then there's no statute. But if it's under misconduct, then there was the 12 months.
Okay.
Now, when Gavin was one of our partners here, we were going through the whole shebang of the Bishop of Winchester,
Little Island,
who was a real rotter and a stinker. I'll say this: he was a liar, and he was a bully, and this and that. And it took almost 6 or 7 years to get him out. And it went through the process where the Church of England finally, forced his resignation.
So it can be done.
It can be done, but it took years of investigations. Welby got involved and backed the Bishop of Winchester and all this and that. But the pressure and the evidence was so overwhelming that eventually he was driven out. But you get the process is so cumbersome, so burdensome. The bishops are so well protected to say that there's 12 months, and sometimes they waive the 12 months rule. Alan Wilson was the Bishop of Buckingham, the Diocese of Oxford, and he was a liberal saint. He was one of the people pushing gay marriage and everything. So he is not on George's hit parade of best bishops. But Alan Wilson believed in fighting the system. And Alan Wilson was charged with an offense. He basically wrote something that somebody objected to on the internet, something rude, and they were allowed to bring a complaint 12 months at a time against Alan Wilson. It was dismissed, of course. But the point is that sometimes this 12-month rule is waived if you're not a bishop in favor. So the complaints basically are, one is ruled out of time and the other is placed in limbo. Well, Channel News keeps doing more stories, and the diocesan leadership, the archdeacons and the leaders of the House of Clergy and Laity, say they have no confidence in Bishop John Perambalith and want a detailed investigation. And then Bishop Perambalith finally resigns. This is all happening within a day or two, and he takes the decision, he's actually to retire. He says because he's being tried by media and there's been a rush to judgment. And in his resignation statement, he said, quote, "This is not a resignation occasioned by fault or by any admission of liability." So basically, he's saying he's being forced out of office, but he didn't do anything wrong, but for the greater good, he's going to let it go. Then hours later, the Bishop of Warrington, which is one of the suffragan sees in the Diocese of Liverpool, a woman, Bev Mason, she released a statement saying that she had been the bishop, the woman complaining about sexual harassment.
So she's the victim, or she related a story of another victim?
No, she was the victim.
Wow.
And in looking at the complaints, well, the one in Essex, the police investigated and said it did amount to sexual harassment, criminal harassment. And it's the sort of thing that a drunken fraternity boy would do at a party, nibbling somebody's ear, whispering their ear, "I love you," biting the lobe of their ear. Except this wasn't a 19-year-old boy. This was a 50-plus man doing it to a woman of the same age. And so Bishop Bev Mason was sexually harassed. She didn't say in what way. So we don't know whether the nibbling and the biting was the woman in Essex or the bishop in Liverpool. But as soon as she makes a complaint, she is placed on administrative leave. She is treated as the pariah. So as she said, for 510 days, she's not been allowed to do anything, say anything, speak anything. And now she's coming out and saying that this is what has happened, that she was the woman who complained against her boss, the Bishop of Liverpool. Then Channel 4 takes it even further. And then the third story on this issue, they report that Stephen Cottrell interfered with the Crown Nominations Committee to get Perambalith the job at Liverpool. Perambalith had been appointed an assistant bishop of Bradwell by Cottrell. And Cottrell knew about the Essex charges. When Perambalith was poised to move up the ladder from Bradwell to take the diocesan see of Liverpool, he either failed to complete or failed the safeguarding requirements. Now, Helen Ann Hartley, the Bishop of Newcastle, commented on this. She's been a bishop 3 places, in New Zealand, then an assistant in England, and then diocesan in Newcastle. And she said that every step of the way, she was told that if there was any safeguarding issues, any safeguarding questions, it stops dead in the water. Perambalith was not treated that way. Perambalith, the Channel 4 says, The Crown Nomination Committee voted 9-5, and that's not the necessary 2/3 vote. Cottrell then basically bullied the committee and said, do it again until you get the right answer. They still came back 9-5. Then Stephen Croft came in and said, do it, and he got one person to switch, even though Perambalith had not completed or had failed the safeguarding requirements. And with the one vote switched, Perambalith got the job in Liverpool. But what does this now tell us? That within the last month, we have 2 stories about Stephen Cottrell where he took somebody who was under a cloud, this guy Tudor, who had been convicted of sexual abuse. And after knowing he had been convicted of sexual abuse, made him an honorary canon, made him an area dean. And this past week, we learned that while he was under a cloud, Cottrell made Tudor a teaching vicar, where he sent curates to study and to learn under Tudor. And now Perambalith, who was under a cloud of sexual misconduct allegations and had failed safeguarding, Cottrell stepped in and tried to force it with Stephen Croft, and basically so jobs for the boys, jobs for my friends. We take care of our own. So on one level, this is about, I hate to put it this way, but there's a difference between raping children and being a sex pest. One is horrible, one is don't do it. But then this is more about power. Cottrell is exercising unlawful, immoral, I would say illegal power to get his boys into the right job. It's jobs for the boys.
Mm-hmm. And
jobs for my team.
And suspensions for the complainers.
Yeah.
If you bring up a safeguarding issue where you are the victim and you are a clergy person, you are put out. You are told to take a break. You're the problem. This isn't 1960.
Last year we reported about Stephen Kurt, who was a vicar, I think in St. Albans or near London, suburban London, who brought a safeguarding complaint against somebody, and the diocese basically made him the villain for reporting the problem. Bev Mason, who's, people used to think, well, I'm just a curate and I'm being bullied by the bishop to take a job I don't want. Once I grow up and I'm big and strong, then I won't have this problem. The Bishop of Warrington is being bullied. A man with Stephen Kurt, a man with tenure of office, is being bullied. The culture within the Church of England is sick.
Oh, it is.
It's a sick,
they went after
culture.
A dead bishop. They went after Bishop Bell. I mean, it's as sick as it gets.
Now, as much as I'd love to blame Justin Welby Welby's not the cause of this issue. He is emblematic of it. He is the example of what this culture kicks up. And it's the managerial culture of, we take care of our team, we won't help your team. And it's not, we may think, oh, well, the women's lobby has controlled the Church of England. No, it hasn't. Look at Bishop Bev Mason is put out to pasture, or the gay, and you can't break it down as easily. It's just into the conservatives, the liberals, the this or that, the other. It is tribes made up of people with personal relationships and ties to each other. So friends of Stephen Cottrell go places, enemies don't, and that's not how you run a church.
No. Well, no, this is how they run the church in Church of England. This is not how you're supposed to run a church. Clearly, this is how they are running the church. So,
well, actually, there are now people telling them how to run the church. The Charity Commission has sent a letter to General Synod saying, it's not our job to tell the Church of England what to do, but we're telling you what to do. Get your act in order because you're not in compliance with the rules governing charities and sexual misconduct. And second, there are political stories saying that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is looking to get involved in the whole Church of England mess. which probably be great for him because it would sort of detract from all his other fiascos. But he can go into the Church of England and actually be a good guy instead of the villain he's being portrayed in all immigration and this and that and the other. So when you are attracting, and the Prime Minister has the ability to do this, because he does it on behalf of the King, the protector of the Church of England, the Supreme Governor. So if the Supreme Governor wants, people used to say, George, years ago, why doesn't Queen Elizabeth do something and stop X, Y, and Z? Well, because it's the Prime Minister who actually would have to do that.
Yes.
Tony Blair is not going to do anything. I'm sorry. Well, Keir Starmer is, even though he's an atheist, I think he's an atheist.
I thought it was
agnostic. He's not a good churchgoer. Keir Starmer would be happy to step in if it gives him some political capital, because he needs every ounce that he has.
Yep.
So, fellas, look at the mess you have made, you and your team.
All right, moving on to our next topic. The Diocese of Los Angeles has found a way, in their own little way, to fight the power, fight the man. Diocese of Los Angeles is beginning a sacred resistance to Trump's deportation. And as we know, that Trump has decided to enforce the American laws and clean our borders of people who are here illegally by deporting them. He's starting off with some really messy, bad people. I've seen some of the people that are taken out of Detroit and California, murderers, rapists, some really bad people. And in as such, the church, or people who call themselves the church, the diocese says, we are going to offer sanctuary, which is cool. I mean, we've seen the movies in the past where a criminal can run into a church and demand sanctuary. And the Diocese of Los Angeles is going to do that at many different levels. They're teaching how to avoid ICE. What is ICE, George?
Immigration Customs Enforcement?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's the Border Patrol, Border Police. It's wonderful. I love this story, not because I think what they're doing is great, but it's just going to be such good TV. The Diocese of Los Angeles is being self-righteous. like the Conference of Roman Catholic Bishops, they are objecting to the U.S. government enforcing its laws. And so what they're saying is, we're going to open up our churches and our church schools, and we're going to give sanctuary to people, and we'll tell you how to avoid ICE and this and that. And they are just waiting for ICE to come and take away people who are got their little hand on the altar in the church, and so that people can, so clergy can dress up in day-glow clothes with badly fitting albs and protest the inhumanity of the Trump administration. But I just can't wait for people to be arrested, clergy to be arrested. It'll just make me so happy.
Well, clearly right now the church, and the very liberal part of the church, is trying to put on this discussion about what do we do with sojourners? What do we do with the illegal immigrants? And why is America so evil for wanting to impose its laws that it's had for more than 200 years? And it is a big discussion. I get that. And I get that the church itself internally likes to have this discussion. And it's not something that we're going to get too deep into in the last 4 minutes of Anglican Unscripted today. But I don't see a problem with the church doing what God did, and the government doing what God did. When God found a whole bunch of people he freed sitting in the side of Mount Sinai, I can't even say it right. He said, you know what you guys need? 10 commandments. You're a little bit unruly. You need law. You need rule. You need order. I know that's controversy, Kevin. You're so out of line. Oh, there was a guy in the comments said, Kevin has no right. He's not a clergy to say any of these things against Trump. Well, I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not pro-government. I am only pro-gospel. And so sometimes you're going to hear me complain about Trump. You certainly heard me complain about Biden. And immigration is an easy discussion. Illegal immigration is not. Okay? So, but we'll discuss that some other time, George. Because the Diocese of Los Angeles will force us to. What is our last story here? You put on here the M23 rebels have taken a city of Goma. And we should talk about this because there's still violence happening on the terra we call Africa.
Yet Congo is suffering from a problem of illegal immigration.
Yes, it is.
The M23 rebels from Rwanda have crossed the border and have, I'm joking. Kevin and I have slightly different views on politics. We're pretty much aligned, but I like Donald Trump. I find him entertaining.
I find myself defending him more this term than last term. Okay.
You know. Well, a humanitarian crisis is unfolding in the Congo, and I hate to say it again. Rebels of the M23 rebel group, who are people of Rwandan ancestry, who at the genocide were forced into refugees into the Congo. And they've been there now for 20 plus years. They have laid siege and have captured the city of Goma, which is the big border town between Congo and Rwanda. Martin Gordon is the Anglican Bishop of Goma. He's an Englishman. He's a missionary bishop. And he's reported that it's chaos as people are fleeing. The rebels have entered the city. The clergy told Martin that he and his wife and family needed to get out of town, so all the white faces, are in danger. And this is almost like taking it back to the 60s in the Congo with the civil wars and everything. And the white, the Belgian colonists being forced to flee. So we're seeing a massive shift of population. Bishop Gordon was able to get across the border, fell apart. But here's the kicker. It's, we can say, oh, well, another African war, civil war. Rwandan troops have also entered into Congo. And there's the danger of a regional war between Congo, Rwanda, with Burundi and Uganda being all drawn in. Why are they fighting? Plus, you have ISIS involved. Congo is one of the most mineral-rich parts of the world, and the rebels fund themselves through their mining operations. We've heard about blood diamonds. Used to be in West Africa that the rebel militias would make money by the diamond mines. Well, the gold mines and the diamond mines and all the different mines in this part of the world are held by different rebel groups who use and extract the minerals and fund their activities. And we could see a regional war break out with millions of. Last time there was a war in this part of the world, over 1 million people died, civilians, through famine, disease. And we just need to pray for Bishop Martin and his people because they're going to go through a bad time of it.
Indeed. All right. Time for the end of the show. It's raining here, so I had to keep turning the mic off and on to mute out the sorry about that. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 899 of Anglican Unscripted.